Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it. Hey guys, what's going on? So I am here at the marina approaching the Delaware River. It's a really cool spot to check out this recumbent. It's actually called the Electric T3 Trike. It's pretty cool. It's got a system on it from Electric Bike Technologies. I'm with my man Alec. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's nice to be here. I love this trike. This is cool thing about this is kind of like a race car. This is our purpose-built speed machine. So if you want to go fast, pedal a lot, if you're transitioning maybe from like a road bike to the world of trikes, this is going to be more like your familiar road bike with narrow tires, high gears, high speed, but also a lot of like recumbent bike comfort and stability from 3 wheels. Back to you, Mikey.
Yeah. So yeah, Alec's done a great job of kind of summarizing what this is made for. It's a recumbent built for speed. Let's go ahead and check out some of the mechanical components and show you that. All right, so as Alec was saying, this is a speed machine, and you can kind of tell that from the frame. So like a good recumbent, it's got 2 wheels up in the front and 1 wheel in the back. They call that a tadpole trike, if you're curious. But you'll see the frame, if you kind of come down here a little bit lower, you'll see that the frame bows down towards the center of the rider and then kind of kicks back up a little bit to accommodate the back and the rear triangle there that holds the wheel in place. So that's done to keep the rider weight low, keep stability pretty nice, pretty tight when you're going at a higher speed, which is great. Because some of the other trikes, also from the guys here at Electric Bike Technologies, they have one called the EcoTad, and that one is significantly higher. The rider weight is higher. As a result, it's a little bit easier to get in and out for the rider, but this seat is pretty darn comfy. Once you get slumped down in there, you can get your pedals up higher, higher than your waist. So that gives you a lot of torque to use as you're pedaling the bike. And you have a pretty big honking chainring up in the front coming down to a fairly small set in the back. So that's kind of like the speed sort of motif that it's going for. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the specific nuts and bolts of it. So let's go ahead and start at the tippy front of the trike. You got some pretty good pedals up in here that have the metal on the outside with the reflectors attached into a metal core. The center is kind of plastic, so you know, that's one of the trade-offs that you get. Keeps it lightweight, I suppose. So coming up here, you have a 170 millimeter crank coming into this kind of universal spider system that they have for the chainring set. On the gearing, on this little tiny sprocket in here, you got 32 teeth, and then that comes up to 42, finally 52 teeth up on the top. So that gives you a lot of torque, a lot of torque. And when you're sitting back in the chair, you have not only your legs to do some of the powering, but you can also kind of press back. As you press on the pedals, that also pushes your back, and you can get more of your body positioning into forcing those pedals forward. So you get a ton of torque on something like this with 52 teeth up front and all the rider positioning to pedal. I mean, that's a lot. And then we'll get into the back of the bike in a second. So this is connected to the front derailleur, which is right here. And that comes around the piping to go into the grip shift on the handlebars. So this is the one for the rear, but how it operates is you kind of twist it. So with this kind of a setup with the handlebars, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit. With the handlebars set up this way, you do have to shift gears with your pinky and your ring finger to kind of get a good spot on there. So these grip shifts are made for the hand to be in that position, but of course these are flipped so that the rider can get here. So that's one thing. If you have arthritis or if it's kind of tough to make a full grip, this is going to be a little bit challenging. And also on the other side of the bike as well, this might be a little challenging to shift gears. So you probably want to set this up into something that's a little you know, more universal, kind of set it up in a middle gear if that is a consideration for you. This bike is definitely meant for someone who's in for a little bit more of a thrill. But continuing on up at the front, the chain is enclosed by this tubing right here. So this tubing extends all the way down to the bottom of the bike and then back up a tiny bit, and it's held in place by this brace right here. So this entire front assembly is called the boom, and this boom is extendable. So if you want to actually adjust how long the pedals are or how long the stroke is for your legs, you would actually adjust the pedals rather than the other way around on a traditional bicycle where you raise the seat. In this case, you're actually moving the pedals forward. The seat is adjustable itself, but the adjustment on the seat is not nearly as fine-tuned and customizable as the legs. So that's kind of your primary adjustment point right there. Also up on the front is the sensor for pedal assist, but we'll get to that once we cover the electric system. So again, coming back down the frame, this is the solid frame here. It's a chromoly steel, and it's got a really nice gloss red, kind of a dark red paint. I like it a lot. Red is my favorite color, so brownie points there. So coming up to the handlebars are linked together with this steering linkage right here. So this part is like the kingpin that kind of holds the brake, as well as the little mount for the steering to go from one side to the other. So that cross section there allows you to steer both wheels with just one hand. So it makes steering the bike much more efficient, much easier. So coming up to the handlebars here, you got this on either side. This handlebar is, kind of an interesting design. This feels kind of like you're grabbing the wheel and tugging on it and actually turning the wheel manually. It's not too far from the truth, because this is your headset right in here, and there's a headset mirrored on the other side, of course, and your handlebar just kind of extends out from there, so there's not really a stem to speak of. But the handlebar is about 6 inches, 7 inches long, then it extends up into the actual grip right there, which of course is housing all of your cables and everything required for using the bike. So the throttle for the bike is mounted on top of the grip, and this does kind of clutter things up a little bit because you got the cable kind of coming down. It's kind of tough because with a bike like this that is using a system, it's hard to find a place for everything, because if you put it down here, it's really tough to access, and nobody wants to put it on the frame. That's not going to work. So you kind of have trade-offs here or there, and this, in my opinion, is one of them. Mounting the throttle here with the cable coming down. They do have a waterproof disconnect on here, so it's not like posing a hazard, I would say. It's just not the cleanest look for the bike in total. Also talking about the grips here, the levers for the brakes are nice and big, which is good. You probably heard me talk about the grip shift right there being difficult to maneuver with just your 2 weakest fingers right there. But having a nice big 4-finger lever for the brakes is good, because you can actually get a good hold of that with your top fingers. You get a nice leverage there to pull on that to get it down. Also, you have a parking brake, so when you pull on the lever, you can also engage the parking brake, let go, and that way the brake is kind of stiff and on there, so it's not going to roll away. I guess this is kind of the replacement for a kickstand. Obviously the bike doesn't need a kickstand because it's a trike and it's got 3 wheels to balance, but nonetheless you don't want it to roll away, so that's a good parking brake to keep things there, which is good. This brake lever also has an electric cutoff signal, so that means that there is a little system in here that has 2 magnets, and when you pull on the lever, that sends a signal down to the controller to cut off motor power, so you're never fighting against the motor system while you're braking. And while we're at it, the brakes, these are a ProMax 300 piston actuated mechanical disc brake based on a cable. So pulling on that extends the cable, or it actually tightens up the cable to pull on this little piston here to squeeze on the 160 millimeter rotors that you have on either side. On this system, you have a brake on the bottom of the right wheel, and you have a piston on the top of the left wheel, or the caliper rather, is located on the top and the bottom. They do this because they make one style of caliper. They don't have a caliper that's mirrored for the other side from ProMax, so you got one on the top and one on the bottom. It works pretty well. I mean, there's no brake on the back of the bike, and that's fine, because for a trike, the majority of your stopping power is going to be done on the front, and the back brake doesn't really do a whole lot, just kind of drags a little bit. So don't be too alarmed when you see that there's just 2 really good front brakes, but nothing on the rear. This seat, it may not photograph very well. It doesn't look entirely impressive, but it actually feels pretty good. You do have some solid railing all around the perimeter of it, and then just a nice mesh in the middle. So it kind of has this lawn chair sort of feeling. So it's nice and relaxed, laid back, and it's pretty strong, because you can, like I said, kind of put your weight a little bit back and kind of push against it to get some more leverage on putting your weight and your force into the pedals, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and pull this forward just a tiny bit. So this is adjustable. You can kind of change how tight you want the mesh with these little clips and buckles here, which is nice. This one's already set up for me, which is actually a really important point. So before I got here, the guys at Electric Bike Technologies, including Alec here, they got the bike all set up for me. So I gave them some specific measurements that they asked for, and they got the bike sized up. So for the length of my legs and also for my height. And if you order one of these, they do the same thing. Is that right for all the customers? Yeah, we like to take your inseam and exseam measurement when we can. And we're glad to talk with you on the phone, and there's a form online and a couple of videos about how to take the measurements. And what that lets us do is set up a trike that will fit you pretty closely out of the box with minimal fiddling.
And that way, because we ship these trikes fully assembled to you, so you can get riding in just a few minutes after you pop it out of the box.
Cool. So that's pretty cool. These things are shipped fully assembled, and they made an important point to tell me that it's not like, oh, you got to put the wheel on, or oh, make sure that you know, put the handlebars straight. It's shipped fully 100% assembled and, you know, a little bit tailored to your size. So that's a pretty cool thing. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the mechanical specs. Alec took a jump onto the trike, so that's good. You can kind of get a sense of scale for what we're talking about. So the steering is a little tight. That's one thing I should mention, is that when Alec kind of turns it, you can see his hands are pretty close to the wheel. So that gives you a really, really tight turn and cornering. If you're not used to that kind of riding, it can be a little intimidating at first, but after you get the hang of it, you can really get some major speed on a vehicle like this. Which, by the way, this is using a Kenda Quest tire. This is a 20 by 1.25 for diameter and size, which is pretty good. You can get some pretty good rolling resistance on these tiny, thin little tires. So that's pretty nice. And you see that Alec has his feet forward and he's kind of slumped back in the chair here. This is actually really good for comfort, but like I said, you know, get a lot of force on that. Which is of course adjustable.
Yeah, as far as comfort, it's really cool with a sling seat like this. You actually don't sit on anything solid. I'm sitting just on the mesh, so the hammock analogy is perfect. I'm completely suspended by the mesh of the seat, so it's very comfortable. There's not like a hard spot or a hot spot or a pressure point.
Great. And again, coming back to the back of the bike, underneath the seat, you actually have a pretty cool system in here in which the chain kind of crosses on this little idler right here. So this idler gear, as you can see, as Alex is going backwards, it will spin with the chain, and it's just kind of a dummy that allows things to stay aligned. And you can see there's kind of some extra space so that as you switch gears, this idler will also kind of extend and contract on this little system right here. And that's pretty cool, because with this you can keep the pedal tension adjusted very well, and you can also make sure that you're in the right gear. And that's nice because you have a really considerable length. I mean, his feet are way up there. It extends all the way across his body and then back here behind to the rear set of gears in the back. That's much, much longer than a traditional bike. And so they have these considerations that are already built into the bike, already set from the get-go. So that chain is also coming back into this set of gears here. You got 11 on the bottom end and you got 28 on the top end. So you can get some pretty good speed with this kind of setup, especially considering the 52 tooth chain ring up in the front as a maximum. So this is using the SRAM X4 for a derailleur, which is pretty good. You get some good indexing with that. Again, so long as you can get your hand on that grip shift, you can get some pretty good shifting done there. It's nice and compact. So that's about does it for the mechanical considerations, other than a couple of points like the seat is adjustable for a couple of pins that you can adjust the seat position between 1, 2, or 3 as far as length, but also for the rear brace. So the seat is being held up by this brace in the back, which is adjustable more or less on the fly. You kind of pull these pins out of the way, get them out, and then you telescope up or down the rear brace, and then you put the pin, lock it into position, you're ready to rock. There is a little bit of play as far as the position of this brace, because it has to be able to accommodate so many different sizes. So it's not like the most stiff, but then again, it's a hammock seat, or a hammock style like suspended seat in the first place. So that adds a lot of comfort to the total package. So let's go ahead and jump into the electrical specs. All right, so going over the electric system, I guess we can kind of do the opposite and start on the back of the bike and work our way forward. So this bike in particular is using the 48 volt 10 amp hour battery, which is encased in this metal casing right here with a key and a rack and a slider and everything like that. I'll go ahead and show you how that works. So this rear rack, as you can see, is specifically designed to hold this battery. If you put the key out of here, we'll go ahead and turn the key and turn the bike off as a result. Pull the key out, and then from there you can raise this handle, kind of pull out the battery. A little tough with one hand. And here's a main plug to unplug the battery itself. So you slide this off and then the battery comes out, and then when you're ready to put it back in, you can put it back on the slider, push it in, plug in the battery, and reverse that process, get the key back in there. Make sure the key is perfectly horizontal, and then the bike is now available to be turned on. This is a pretty cool system. This has been around for a little while. You can see that it's branded by eBike Kit, which is actually a sister company for ElectricBikeReview.com, which is the the seller and maker of these right here in Pennsylvania. So this is a pretty good battery system. Honestly, I like this a lot. If you want to save a couple of bucks, you can actually opt for this battery right here. So instead of the rear rack that has the built-in spot for the metal case and the rail, you can get a different rear rack that accommodates this bag. So it's a pretty simple bag that holds, in this case, a 48 volt 9 amp hour battery right in that spot there. So you can save a couple bucks by going that direction, or if you want, you can get a 48 volt 20 amp hour that fits in this same bag, but it consumes most of the bag, kind of fills it out with a much larger battery. And as you can imagine, the 48 volt 20 amp hour can go a considerable distance over the 4810 or the 48.9. So Alec, what kind of range were you guys seeing when you were testing this bike?
Yeah, so for the 4810 there, we list that as 12 to 26 miles, and all of our ranges, which you can see on our website at ElectricBikeReview.com, that's all based on real world testing. And so we'll start out with a rider of about 250 pounds. And we'll send him off on a trial course with a little bit of hills, a little bit of wind. And if you can imagine, that 12-mile range is like the worst conditions. It's a lot of starting and stopping. It's a whole lot of just using the throttle. And we don't expect you to ever see worse range than the minimum listed. And then the maximum is going to be moderate pedaling, better conditions, less hills. So when we say 12 to 26 miles, that's based on real testing and actual conditions. And then with the larger batteries, you can expect more range, and with the smaller, you can expect less range proportional.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. They've actually tested the bikes under those conditions. So that's a nice thing about dealing with the guys at Electric Bike Technologies. They've been doing this for a long time. They've been at it for a while, and they kind of know what they're getting into. And they know what to deliver as well, which is pretty cool. So that customization of the battery is about it for the electric system. The rest of it is just kind of uniform across the board. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the controls. So up on the left hand side by default is where they have the mount for the display. So Alec's going to go ahead and press the mode button and turn the display on, which, by the way, this can be mounted on the opposite side if you'd like. It's a simple thing. So on this mount, you can actually customize the tilt of the display on such an axis, as well as changing the little arm that it's extended on as well. So this display is pretty cool. It's very simple. Has on the grip attachment, you just have a simple up, down, and mode. The up or down controls your pedal assist, or rather your assist level, because this also acts to cap the throttle as well as kind of change the curve a little bit. So when you're in pedal assist level 1 or assist level 1, the assistance caps out at a certain level, and it kind of stays there comfortably. And then when you press it up to level 2, that raises the limit, but it also changes the curve a little bit to kind of feel more comfortable as it gets there. It doesn't have like a harsh wall. And likewise, that goes up all the way to level 5. So this bike does ship with a 20-mile-an-hour top speed, but I think it's pretty easy to goof with it to get it to go faster. Is that right?
Yeah, we give you a lot of options in the screen with this is our own custom firmware that we developed over a long period of time. You have a lot of choices for going slower or for going faster. So if we look in the settings on the screen here, it takes just a second to open the settings. I just hold the up and down arrows at the same time for 3 seconds. And then we have a few things here. We can change between miles and kilometers readout. This is your speed limit. So right now we've got this one that we're testing in the review today, unlimited. It's set at a 50 kilometer per hour top speed, but depending on your local regulations, you'll want it set maybe at 32 kilometers for a 20 mile per hour limit in a lot of areas these days. We've got our wheel size setting, our motor type, because this is compatible with a lot of stuff, our battery type. As you come forward more, you can control your current limit. So let's say that I wanted to limit the system to about 500 watts. I could set this for a 10 or 11 amp limit instead of leaving it at 20 amps, which is going to get us like 960 watts as it ships. So if you want to control your power output, you're able to do that. And then you're able to actually dial in the sensitivity of the pedal assist sensor, so that if you feel like you're getting too much or too little assist from the pedal assist, you can crank this up and down at will in order to fine-tune the details there, and then go back into your main display and ride it a little bit and feel how it is from there. So I give you a lot of options for faster, slower, more sensitive, less sensitive as you dial it into your needs.
So the throttle, as I kind of pointed out before, is on the right hand side by default, and you kind of use your thumb to extend it over there and engage the throttle. I did kind of mention it's not like the most ideal for hand placement and cleaning up the handlebars, but it's there, you know, and that's really the most important thing. For a lot of folks who are getting recumbent trikes, they have some accessibility issues, or they want to get the trike moving at all, and it's a little bit cumbersome. So having the presence of a throttle is a big plus to that. So I don't mind terribly having it there. The pedal assist is actuated by this little disc right here. So on this disc you got 12 magnets that pass by a counter, and that's how the system knows that you want some assistance, is that when the pedals move in a forward direction, that's how it knows it wants it, and then that's how it knows you want it, and it sends out the power as a result. When you stop pedaling, of course, these cranks stop moving, and therefore it kind of lets you coast from there. It never takes over or anything like that. Powering it is this 500 watt geared motor that you have in the back here. This is held on here by a little torque arm, which kind of acts to take in some of the incoming torque from the motor system. It's a pretty nice motor. You know, these last for many thousands of miles, and these guys do a good job of picking good motor manufacturers so they can get the most bang for their buck for customers who are using these for a long time. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on the bike and take you guys for a ride. One thing about this bike that really kind of comes to life when you are riding it is just how tight the steering is. I mean, it really does feel like you're grabbing the wheel and turning the wheel when you're steering this thing. I mean, you're talking about like a sports car kind of steering. It's super tight. So yeah, when you're going pretty fast, that kind of tight steering, you got to be a little cautious because you don't want to like tip over on the trike or anything. It's relatively hard because you're on a trike anyway, but if you get some good speed on a speed bike like this, then yeah, it's certainly possible. So let's go ahead and give it some guts and see how fast we can get on the throttle now that we have the speed unlimited. So let's go. Since I'm using one hand to hold the camera, I got the other hand doing the braking for me, so I had to brake a little bit early because, like I said earlier, if you brake on one side, you're braking only one tire instead of the other one, in this case the right hand side. So all right, let's go ahead and get myself a nice runway and we'll see if we can get a little bit faster, shall we? All right, here we go. Max runway. We're gonna pass Alec. All right, here we go. I think there's actually a speed limit here of 25, but no, let's go. All right, so that's what we're able to get with full throttle. We got a pretty good runway there. I'd say, I don't know, like 150 yards or so. I don't want to go too terribly fast. I certainly don't want to do that in the street around here. But yeah, it's really fun. It feels pretty stable. I mean, I'm doing all of this with one hand controlling the bike and the other hand controlling the camera. I'm doing pretty good. You know, you can get some good turns on there. Right now we're going at about, let's get some more speed. We're going about 10, 12 miles an hour. You can do some pretty good turns even with one hand, so I kind of like that. You know, the tight steering is really effective in this case. I like it a lot. Let's go ahead and show you a little bit of the pedal assist system. I'll put the camera up towards my legs so you can kind of see how that goes. Okay, all right, so my foot kind of came out there, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think I found a great runway for this. You know, come to the marina right after a holiday and you should be set if you wanted to play around a little bit. Okay guys, thanks for checking out the electric T3 Trike with me. It's been a lot of fun. I really like the speed demons. They kind of speak to me a little bit. But yeah, if you want to check out the full specs and write-up and measurement for this bike with the full review, go to ElectricBikeReview.com. You can also compare this with other bikes that we found at ElectricTrike.com. But you can compare this with other bikes and brands from all over the industry and kind of look around and see what bike fits you best. You can also go there and participate in the forums and ask a question, you know, kind of interact with the community. That's also available on the site, ElectricBikeReview.com. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Ride safe.